Welcome back to another episode of the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jenny, and today we're talking about what to expect when you're expecting.
Yay!
And the reason why is because Megan is back, obviously.
Back.
Yay.
Ugh.
I cannot be more happy that you're back.
I'm so excited to be back. I'm so excited to be talking to you. I'm so excited to talk to all of you guys. Thank you for all of the amazing messages congratulating me. And a huge shout out to Jenny and to Robert for carrying the podcast for the last couple of months so that I could take a break.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for saying that. Honestly, shout out to the listeners for sticking with me during that.
You did such a good job.
Thanks,
of course
Megan.
They did.
You're so
of course
sweet.
They did.
Well, we really missed you here.
I'm so excited to be back. I'm so excited to talk about this movie. This was one of my favorite movies growing up, and I watched it so often, like it was just a comfort watch for me. I think partially because one of my biggest fears in life was giving birth, and now to watch it again after I have done that is like such a new perspective. It's so fun.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. When I was watching this movie, I was just like, I can't wait to get Megan's perspective on this now that she has been through it.
Yeah, it was definitely different. It definitely felt different to watch it, which was funny. I guess we should rewind for a second. I had my baby in early December. She is beautiful. She is perfect. She's healthy. It went well. The delivery was good. Her name is Juliet.
The most perfect name ever.
We were very torn on a name up until we left the hospital, and I'm thankful that it really fits her.
It absolutely fits her. She's the cutest, sweetest baby ever. And I can't wait to meet her. I actually haven't met her yet.
I know. I can't wait. It's going to be great.
Long distance friendship, you guys.
I know. Yeah, we need to FaceTime with her when she's awake.
Absolutely. How is it being a new mom?
Oh my God, it's so hard. It's amazing. It's so worth it. But I have so much respect for moms, especially stay-at-home moms. I mean, I always respected mothers, obviously. I feel like that's such a hard job and it's so important. But now doing it, it is so much more work than anybody ever let on. Like truly, it changes every second of your day. And it's a lot, but it's been wonderful. And she's so amazing and it's so fun to watch her get so much bigger every day. She gains an ounce a day. So like she's a new baby every week.
An ounce a day?
Mm-hmm. That's how they measure to make sure that she's like growing on track.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's like a couple pounds a month at least. And so she's like a whole new baby every week, it feels like.
That is wild.
She stays awake for a little bit longer every day. Also just her schedule changes every day. And it's been really fun.
Well, I'm so proud of you. You're such a good mom.
Thanks.
And it's such a huge life change for you. But yeah, I couldn't be more happy to see you in this new role. And your baby is just perfect.
Thanks. I would love to do like a full episode on this, like, you know, talk through my birth story, talk about how it's been as a first-time mom, and just like my expectations versus how it's actually been going, just for even my own documenting. I feel like I don't want to forget it. And everybody says that you forget, you know, the early months quickly. So I would love to do that. We've been toying with the idea of starting a Patreon forever. So maybe that would be a good place for it.
Please let us know if you guys would like that, because I want nothing more than that episode.
I feel like all I kept thinking during my birth, I was also induced, so I was in the hospital for a little while. And then immediately after, especially that first like week or two, I was just like, why didn't anybody tell me all of the like nitty gritty stuff that happens? Because there's so much that happens and you have no idea what to expect really when you go into it. And I think so much of that is because it's so easy to get swept up in like being a mom and then getting back into your routine. And then it feels like old news because your baby is changing so much to then go back and like talk through the birth and everything that happened. But I was like dying for that type of content right before I had a baby. So if you guys would be interested in that, let me know.
I think it would be so helpful to people. Even just talking to you and catching up the other day, you were telling me things that I had absolutely no idea about. Like how your epidural is affected by gravity.
Yeah.
And they had to like roll you over to get it on the other side. Nobody tells you that.
No, I know. And then sometimes that doesn't work, as I experienced.
Oh, no.
Anyway, Yeah, I'm excited to like talk through this movie and talk about some of the things that happened in the movie that I also experienced. And I know there are so many moms listening. I'm sure you guys will be able to relate to a lot of this too.
I also haven't seen this movie. This was my first time.
This is exciting.
Yes, so I cannot wait to talk about it with you. Also, this one is boy approved, by the way.
Wow. Did you watch with Robert?
He was not interested.
Okay.
And then he saw Anna Kendrick, and, we love Anna Kendrick. So then he kind of started listening, and then he kind of migrated to the couch, and then he ended up watching the whole thing with me.
Wow. I'm so excited that this is on that list.
Yeah, me too, because, boys are tough critics.
Our boys certainly are. Quick reminder to leave us a review wherever you're listening and to follow us on social media at What We're Watching Pod.
We really love hearing from you guys. Thank you.
This movie follows the lives of 5 interconnected couples as they experience the thrills and surprises of having a baby and realize that no matter what you plan for, life does not always deliver what is expected.
Wow. That was a way with words right there.
Shout out to whoever wrote that logline. Very punny.
Yeah, very good copywriter. I think when I originally saw that this movie was one of those jam every celebrity into a movie and have all of these interconnected storylines, I was expecting something very different. I think I was expecting something really cheesy, and I was really pleasantly surprised. I felt like this was actually a really good movie. And I'm not saying that those interconnected stories with a really stacked cast can't be really good, but they're just like a different kind.
Yeah, it's a specific genre because you don't really get deep into a lot of the characters or a lot of the plots normally. And I don't even know that you necessarily get deep into these plots, but it's so entertaining to me for some reason, this movie.
I think it's the way that they interconnected everything was really clever. And it wasn't just like, I don't know, I feel like other movies kind of do it in a lazy way, but this one was really good.
Quick disclaimer at the top, this movie covers all kinds of topics related to pregnancy, including birth, complications, miscarriage. If any of that is sensitive to you, no worries. We will catch you on the next episode.
Yeah, if you're not in a place to hear this episode, no worries at all.
So this movie is based on a very famous book of the same name called What to Expect When You're Expecting. The book was written by Heidi Markoff. Jenny actually gave me this book while I was pregnant.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
I think it was in one of those cute little libraries in your neighborhood or something.
Yeah, it was. My neighborhood has a lot of those little libraries that people put out in front of their houses or in front of apartment buildings and stuff. And I was walking the dog and I passed by one that had What to Expect When You're Expecting. And I think I texted you and I was like, hey, do you want this book?
I was like, yes.
So I ran back outside and I got it.
Thank you for doing that.
Of course.
It just makes me think of this movie so much, obviously.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of controversy around this book that I read about that you guys might be familiar with if you've read the book before or if you know of it. Some people find that it made them more anxious when it came to pregnancy because it gives very specific directions of things that you're supposed to do, ways that you're supposed to eat, and it outlines possible complications. So if you're the type of person that doesn't want more detailed information, then I can see how that might freak you out.
But if you're the Cameron Diaz in this movie, then
this is probably
that's for you.
Totally.
Interesting.
The movie came out in 2012. It was written by Shauna Cross and Heather Hatch. And these two ladies did some other movies that we really like. Heather Hatch is actually from Loveland, Colorado, which is right outside Denver, so that's fun. There's a ski resort there. And she also wrote Freaky Friday, and she worked on Legally Blonde, the musical.
Okay, love.
And then Shauna Cross also wrote Bad Santa 2, Whip It, and If I Stay.
Oh, I remember loving Whip It.
Me too.
I don't think I've seen the other two, though.
I feel like I might have seen If I Stay, but definitely not Bad Santa 2. As surprising as that is, given I love Christmas and sequels.
Neither have I seen Bad Santa 1.
I know, same. And my favorite thing about this movie is that it takes place in and was filmed in Atlanta, which we're both from the Atlanta area, so that's fun. If you guys are from Atlanta or if you've been there, you'll recognize a lot of iconic Atlanta spots throughout the movie, including Piedmont Park and the Georgia Aquarium, which is the same Georgia Aquarium that we talked about in the last song. Very famous. If you ever come to Atlanta, you need to go.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think the funniest thing was there was one guy who was wearing a Georgia Tech t-shirt the whole time, and Robert, I think maybe that's part of what made him interested in the movie is because he's connected to Atlanta too. So he was really interested in spotting all of the sets and things.
It is fun because even like the little like shopping centers that they show are all in the city. Whereas a lot of times when things are filmed in Atlanta, they're filmed like further out in the suburbs or even like in North Georgia, but they say that they filmed in Atlanta. But a lot of this was like, you know, iconic places that you would see when you're driving around the city, which is cool.
I love that.
Okay, should we dive into the cast?
Let's do it.
So I think we should go through the cast by couple. So there are 5 main couples, just so that you can visualize everybody together, because I feel like that's helpful when we're talking about this many characters.
That's a great idea. Let's start with Cameron Diaz and Matthew Morrison, who played Jules and Evan.
Cameron Diaz, you guys obviously know her. She's in so many incredible movies. The Other Woman, The Holiday, There's Something About Mary, My Best Friend's Wedding, Charlie's Angels. We did an episode on The Holiday, actually. That was something that you guys requested big time last Christmas season, so like a full year ago. Definitely go check that episode out. We talked a lot about her in that one. She's also in a new Netflix movie called Back in Action with Jamie Foxx. So she pops up on my Netflix app like every time I open it, which is fun.
That is fun.
I haven't seen it. It got really, really bad reviews, but so did this one, you know? So we can't trust the reviews.
No, we can't trust them.
I learned this when I was reading about her. So she's originally from San Diego and she left home at 16 and traveled around a lot and visited a bunch of different countries, which is very cool. She ended up coming back to California in her early 20s and started auditioning. And she landed her first movie role ever in The Mask when she was 22, where she was cast as the lead opposite Jim Carrey, even though she had never acted before.
Go Cameron.
I know. I'm shook by that. I feel like everybody else you hear like, yeah, I auditioned for 10 years. Yeah, I auditioned for 5 years. Or like, yeah, I was discovered in a mall. But she like moved to California, started auditioning, booked something pretty much immediately, which is crazy.
Wow, that is crazy. That is goals. That's what you think is going to happen to you when you pack up and you move to California to become an actor. You think you're going to get your big break really soon.
Definitely.
And she did. Could happen.
Could happen. She's been married to Benji Madden since 2015, and they've had 2 kids via surrogacy. They have a daughter and a son named Radix and Cardinal.
I don't know why I completely blocked out of my mind that she was married to Benji Madden.
I know.
Forgot that.
Yeah, me too. I don't think they're very public, so I don't think we see them a lot, really.
Okay. Well, I always respect that, you know.
She also has a popular organic wine company that doesn't put any additives in their wine. That's like the thing that they're known for. And the company is called Aveline. You guys have probably seen it if you look it up. I think it's in a lot of stores now, or maybe I've just seen it on social media.
And I think they do a lot of cute promos around the holidays with the holiday movie, which I love when an actor will like lean into an old role that made them really popular or that people just love. It's cute. Okay, let's talk about Matthew Morrison now.
He is most known, at least by me, probably by a lot of you guys, as playing Will Schuester or Mr. Shoe on Glee. He is a singer, dancer, and actor. He was also in Hairspray and Footloose. And I didn't know this, but I was reading about him, and he went to NYU. And students apparently that go to NYU Tisch, which is their acting school, aren't supposed to audition in their first 2 years.
For any outside roles?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Because they're learning the craft?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like they want them to graduate, because I feel like you hear about so many actors that go to NYU and then drop out because they got into a show and so they leave. Anyway, he did drop out.
Oh, okay.
I think he wanted to audition early on and so he dropped out.
Interesting.
Yeah. Outside of his professional career, I thought this was fascinating. He dated and was actually engaged to Chriselle Staus. Do you know who that is?
No.
Okay, she's one of the stars of Selling Sunset and also one of the current stars of Traitors, if you guys are watching the new Traitors season. And like I know of her well, and I know of him a little bit, and I had no clue that they used to date and they were engaged for a while.
Wow.
I know. I saw that she actually said this on Selling Sunset a few years ago. Her quote is, "If I ended up with the person I was with when I was 25, I would want to kill myself. Yeah, you can Google that. You were a dick. Sorry." About Matthew Morrison. This is in reference to Matthew Morrison.
Wait, I love her. I don't know this woman, but I love her.
She is lovable. She's very lovable.
Oh, good. Well, I can tell by that quote. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I feel like we all have one of those.
I know. He does have some controversy, which you guys will know if you know of him and you've heard of him more recently. He was actually fired from So You Think You Can Dance. I believe he was a judge on the show for harassing a female dancer on the show, allegedly.
I didn't know that.
He denies the allegations. So I think she said that he sent her harassing messages. And then he actually released some of their messages back and forth and said, like, see, this is what I said. It wasn't anything bad. Obviously, never trust a man in Hollywood. So I feel like there's probably more behind that. But they're all allegations. I don't think he was charged with anything.
Interesting. Mr. Shu, I did not expect this from you.
I know. Not great.
Now we have one of my favorite couples from the movie, Brooklyn Decker and Dennis Quaid, who play Skylar and Ramsey.
Brooklyn Decker was a famous and very successful model. She was actually, I think, most known for being a Sports Illustrated model before she became an actress. But I think she's such a talented actress. Her and J-Lo, who are the two sort of like non-actors turned actors, although I would consider Brooklyn Decker very much an actor now. We talked about her in our Just Go With It episode. I thought she was so funny in this movie.
She was. She totally was. And she was just precious, you know? Like, actually, I think that she was one of my favorite characters just because she was just so funny.
Yeah, she's very funny and cute. Now, she was actually discovered in a mall in North Carolina.
Had to be someone in this movie.
Of course. And like I said, we talked about her in our Just Go With It episode. Actually, in that episode, we talk about the fact that her husband, who's a famous tennis player, had a cameo in Just Go With It. So if you want to hear kind of like more about her personal life, we talk about it there. And then she was also in Casual Encounters and Grace and Frankie, which I love her in Grace and Frankie. She plays Mallory. Next, we have Dennis Quaid. We've talked about him a bunch of times. He is very famously Hallie's dad from The Parent Trap. He's also in Yours, Mine, and Ours, Something to Talk About, and many, many, many more things. All of you guys will recognize him. Every time we talk about him, we mention this, but he was married to Meg Ryan.
Why do I always forget this?
Yeah.
I always forget.
I think we actually have mostly talked about him because we've talked about Meg Ryan so many times, and we've mentioned in all the information about her that they were married for a while and that they have a son together named Jack Quaid. He plays Huey from The Boys, and he's also one of the main leads in the Netflix movie Plus One.
Is it a rom-com?
Actually, is it Netflix? It might be a Prime movie. It's a rom-com. Yeah, it's cute.
Oh, good.
It's really cute. He plays the male lead.
Oh, I love that. I need to watch some more modern rom-coms. I feel like there have been a lot of them recently, and I have not watched any of them. I need to.
This one's cute.
Oh, good. Next, we have Jennifer Lopez and Rodrigo Santoro, who play Holly and Alex.
Jennifer grew up in the Bronx taking dance lessons. I realized in researching her that her love life has always been in the headlines because she's been with several famous people and just all of her relationships have always been very public, which that sounds obvious, I guess, because she's so famous and maybe just her level of fame lends itself to that. But I feel like a lot of the times when we talk about stars of movies, that's not always the first thing that comes up for everybody, you know? So anyway, it seemed notable. She was married to Mark Anthony, who is a musician and the top-selling salsa artist in the world. They were married from 2004 to 2014, and they have twins together. And then in addition to Mark, she was married 3 other times and engaged 2 additional times.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. We have to touch on the Ben Affleck of it all.
I knew we would.
So they were engaged from 2002 to 2004 before breaking up and then getting back together in 2022. I'm sure all of you guys saw this. It was everywhere, all over. I was about to say all over the magazines, all over social media when they got back together. But the
magazines too, for those who still look at those.
True. And then they broke up last year in 2024 and are officially divorced as of this year, which I'm so bummed about. When they got back together, I was rooting for it and I was hoping they were going to be endgame forever and ever, but no.
Me too. And then wasn't there some like awkward music video or something that he was involved in? Some project she did.
She came out with a movie that was like basically about her own life and it totally flopped. And then I think their breakup came shortly after that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know if he was involved in that though. I think that she is such a talented actress. I think she's so good in this movie. Actually, everything that I've ever seen her in, I think she's really amazing. I learned that her acting career really started in the late 90s and early 2000s, so a long time ago. And that is where she did some of her most famous roles. So she was in Selena, The Wedding Planner, and Made in Manhattan. I would love to cover some of those, so if you guys like any of those movies, definitely let us know.
Me too. She is such a good actress. And in this movie, she's so adorable and relatable. And I really like her in this movie. I actually don't think I've seen a lot of her acting, to be completely honest. So that was really refreshing to see. Also, you and I love a really good celebrity documentary. Have you seen hers?
No.
I don't know when it came out. Maybe like 2020 or something. I'm pulling that out of my butt. I don't know for sure. And I can't remember the name of it, but I remember I liked it. So.
Okay. I didn't even know that she had one. I need to go check it out.
Yeah, it was good. It was about her preparing for her Super Bowl performance, whenever that was.
Okay, yeah. That reminds me of the Lady Gaga one.
I love the Lady Gaga one.
5'2". Would you guys like it if we covered celebrity documentaries? Because we love those. Like, I would love to do like Miss Americana or 5'2", Never Say Never. I don't know.
The Pamela Anderson one, the Martha Stewart one.
I would love to do the Pamela Anderson one. Oh.
Yes. I love all of those. I'm pretty sure when we started this podcast, we were like, we're going to do celebrity documentaries too. And then we just didn't really.
Sorry if you guys can hear my baby crying.
Oh my gosh, her little voice. So cute.
Know. She's getting louder by the day, which is like very cute because she just like babbles sometimes, which is adorable. But then also it means her screams are very loud.
Let's talk about Rodrigo now.
So he's a Brazilian actor, most known actually for his role in Westworld. So you guys might recognize him from that. He was also Carl in Love Actually, which we just talked about this around Christmas. Carl is Laura Linney's work crush in that movie, if you remember. He's like the like nerdy guy that's always at the office late, so she stays late to try to like hit on him.
I totally did not make that connection.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's totally him. Wow.
Yeah, I think he wears glasses in Love Actually, so he like looks a little bit different, and he's not a huge character, but...
That's so funny. I had no idea. I love when we make these connections. It's the best.
And it's always movies that I feel like we just talked about.
Yeah.
Where we like discover that the same person was in that movie that we like talked about like a month ago. Or I guess for me, it feels like a month ago. For you, it was longer.
True. No, but it is true. It is like we always are talking about someone that we just recently talked about, and it all gets interconnected. And I feel like the more and more movies we cover, the more knowledge we're going to have. I've been really into pop culture Jeopardy since you've been on maternity leave.
You texted me about this, yes.
I did. And you guys, if you listen to the podcast, you will crush pop culture Jeopardy. Let me tell you. It's on Amazon Prime. It's my new obsession.
I need to check it out. Colin Jost hosts it, right?
He does. And he does a great job.
I love him.
And also it's funny. And there's a lot of things that like, I swear we will have just talked about in an episode, and then I watch a pop culture Jeopardy episode and I'm like, I just was talking about that person.
Wow. Should we go on?
I think maybe we should.
That would be great. That would be great for the podcast.
We need a third person, and we need someone who understands sports or boy movies.
Oh.
That's where we lack skill.
That is where we lack skill. Sorry if you guys can hear, Brian is definitely reading my daughter a book in the other room, and I can hear him.
It's so special. It's like you're making us a part of your new family.
Yeah, it's bedtime over here. Okay, so back to Rodrigo. He's in a bunch of smaller TV shows and voice acting, so there wasn't anything else that really stuck out to me. So you guys will definitely recognize him the most from Westworld or Love Actually. He's also been married since 2016 to Mel Francowiak. I don't know. Sorry, I'm butchering that. Who is a Brazilian model and TV host. So we love that. We love a long-standing actor relationship.
Yeah. How long have they been together?
They've been married since 2016.
Okay. Yeah, I do like that. They're coming on their 10-year soon. Okay, now we have to get into two people I am very excited to talk about. Elizabeth Banks and Ben Falcone, who play Wendy and Gary.
To me, they play the like every couple in this movie.
Yes.
Like they are the relatable two that are just like watching everybody else have different experiences and being like, what the hell? Anyway, I love them. I think they're so funny. You guys know and love Elizabeth Banks. She's from The Hunger Games, Pitch Perfect, 40-Year-Old Virgin, and way more. And she is also a director. She directed Pitch Perfect, Charlie's Angels, the one with Kristen Stewart, and Cocaine Bear. So a bunch of fun movies. I would totally recommend you guys listen to her episode on Armchair Expert. I know that I recommend that podcast on and off depending on how much I'm feeling it or tolerating it, but her episode is actually great because she talks about getting into acting. So if you're interested in acting at all, her journey to becoming a professional actor is really interesting. She actually turned down her first acting job offer because she knew she would get a better one. And then she did pretty much right after.
Oh my gosh.
She's just like very confident and hilarious and like fun to listen to speak for a long period. So would recommend. She's also married to her college sweetheart, Max. I believe they met like on the first day of college, their freshman year.
Aw.
He, I think, was a normie. I feel like he was maybe in finance or something. And now he's the co-founder of her production company.
Cute.
Mm-hmm. They have 2 sons named Felix and Magnus. And she's actually now the co-founder and creative officer of a canned wine company called Archer Ruse.
2 people in this episode have wine companies that start with an A.
I know. True. Both start with an A.
Interesting.
You're right. She did a good Call Her Daddy episode also when her wine brand launched and they like drank wine while they were talking. That was fun.
Ooh, I'll have to listen.
Mhm.
There's so many people that I have like a backlog of interviews that I want to listen to. I still want to listen to Anna Kendrick's on Armchair Expert that you've told me about a million times.
Mm-hmm.
And I just haven't gotten to it yet, but maybe I'll be inspired now that we're about to talk about her soon too. Okay, next we have Ben Falcone.
Ben is Melissa McCarthy's husband. They've been married since 2005, and they do pretty much every project together. You'll see he has cameos in pretty much all of her movies, and he also directs a lot of the movies that she stars in. I believe he also helps write them.
Oh,
I know I'm about to bring up this podcast for the second time, but they have a great episode together that's pretty recent on Armchair Expert, where they talk about how they met and like they were part of the same friend group when they were doing comedy training at the Groundlings. They like didn't tell their friends that they were dating at first because they didn't want to ruin the vibe of the group.
cute.
And they're so funny when they talk together, so it's just cute to hear about their story. And actually, the 2 of them just released a comedy podcast. It's a like narrative scripted podcast called Hildy the Barback and the Lake of Fire.
Is it a fantasy?
I think so, yeah.
Cool.
And it's a comedy, yeah. It's supposed to be pretty funny. He also has 2 daughters named Vivian and Georgette, who they call Georgie.
That's a cute name. I love that.
Very cute.
Wasn't that one of your contenders?
It was, yes. Yeah, we talked about Georgette. That was one of our tops.
Cute name.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was fun to see Ben Falcone in this movie because I really only know him as Melissa McCarthy's husband or that small role that he has in Bridesmaids where he's the
Yeah.
the what do you call the person? The air marshal?
Yep.
But yeah, I thought he did really great in this movie. He was just a very lovable character and his situation was so strange with his dad. And
I know.
yeah, I can't wait until we dive into that a little bit more. Okay, next we have Anna Kendrick and Chase Crawford, who play Rosie and Marco.
We love Anna Kendrick.
Love.
We actually did deep dives on her in our Pitch Perfect and our A Simple Favor episodes. I love both of those episodes.
Me too.
And I love talking about her.
Wait, question.
Hmm.
Did she and Elizabeth Banks get close because of this movie? Because Elizabeth Banks did Pitch Perfect.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And this would have been before, I think. This is 2012.
Yeah, or was that around the same time?
I feel like that might have been around the same time. So maybe one of them inspired them to work together again on the other one.
Interesting. And I know that this is one of those movies where like a lot of the couples don't interact too much together. So I actually don't think Anna Kendrick ever interacts with Elizabeth Banks's character.
Yeah, but I bet they all stayed in Atlanta at the same time. So that would have been nice.
Probably hung out.
Yeah. So Anna's originally from Maine and she would travel to New York City as a kid to like audition. And then eventually she did do Broadway. And that is what really kicked off her career.
Nice.
She had this really funny quote when she was talking about her romantic scenes with Chase, where she was talking about how annoyed she was by his scruff, his like facial hair. And she said, "I don't know how any woman has survived making out with him more than once." She added that she looked like a character from a horror film after their scenes together. She said, "He's so masculine that his little stubble was excruciating."
So like she's saying that it like cut her or
I think she's
there was
saying
a lot of
that
friction?
it would, yeah, that they when they would kiss, it would like scratch her face.
That's so funny. Okay, let's talk about Chase next.
Most notably, Chase is from Gossip Girl and The Boys, and he actually got his start modeling, I feel like to the surprise of no one. He modeled for Abercrombie & Fitch and Hollister when he was in high school.
He looks like an Abercrombie & Fitch and Hollister boy.
Isn't that fitting?
Yeah, that really is. It's so funny because when we were watching it, Robert kept being like, who is that actor? And I never really watched Gossip Girl except for maybe the pilot a couple times, so I didn't know who he was, but I was like, yeah, he's really familiar. And then we found out that he was from The Boys, and Robert was like, ah.
Mm-hmm. He plays the Deep. His character is really funny and weird in The Boys.
And Robert said that this character is so different from that character, right?
Very.
Interesting.
His first acting job was actually in the movie The Covenant in 2006. Before then, he was cast in Gossip Girl the next year in 2007. So Gossip Girl was pretty early into his career.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why a lot of people know him from that. He's also dated several famous women, which I didn't know, which probably is also because I was not a big Gossip Girl girly. I know there's some of you guys are screaming at us right now.
We want to be.
I know.
Maybe we should get into it as adults.
Maybe we should. Let us know. So he dated Carrie Underwood, Rochelle Golding, Audrina Partridge, and Rebecca Rittenhouse.
Okay.
So several very famous relationships. So I'm surprised that I didn't recognize any of that, especially Carrie Underwood. But I guess I would have been much younger when that happened.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised because he's like such a pretty boy that it makes sense.
Mm-hmm, definitely. There are so many other people that are also in this movie. I'm going to name some of them right now, and I'm not even going to touch all of them. And I will try to shout them out as we go through the movie. But just know, this is one of those movies that has a stacked cast.
Stacked cast.
So in this movie, we'll talk about Chris Rock, Rebel Wilson, Rob Hubel, Thomas Lennon, Joe Manganiello, and J. Todd Smith, among others.
Yeah, I think every single person who showed up on screen, I'd be like, oh, that's so-and-so. Oh, that's so-and-so. And even if I didn't know their name, I knew them from something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fun.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, shall we get into the movie?
Let's do it. So at the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to 5 women. The first is Jules Baxter. Again, this is Cameron Diaz. And she is the finalist on a dance competition TV show. This is definitely supposed to be Dancing with the Stars. I think they call it something else, but it's identical. She's the famous person of the duo. She's actually a coach on a weight loss show that is supposed to be The Biggest Loser.
She's supposed to be Jillian Michaels, right?
Yes, definitely. Which if you're watching Traitors right now, Bob Harper was also a coach on The Biggest Loser. So she's kind of like the Bob Harper of the movie. Her dance partner in this case, so the professional dancer that she's paired with, is Evan, who's played by Matthew Morrison.
Okay, then we switch to another couple. We're with Holly, played by Jennifer Lopez, and her husband Alex, played by Rodrigo Santoro. And they're at home and they're watching Jules dance on TV. So this is part of how the interconnectedness is starting to play out. Also watching are Wendy and her husband Gary, that's Elizabeth Banks and Ben Falcone. And they're wearing Snuggies, and it's really cute.
I love them. Just every time they were on screen, I was like, they're us, you know? They're
Absolutely.
Me. And then we also see Rosie, who's played by Anna Kendrick, watching the same show with her roommates. And they speculate that Jules and Evan are sleeping together, which is very astute because they are.
And then Jules and Evan win. They're handed their trophy, which is a giant cup. And I think Evan spins her around and around and around. And then she barfs into the trophy that they get. And the host says, let's hope she's not pregnant, folks. And Jules and Evan just look at each other. And I am so dense sometimes when I watch movies. I was like, why would he say that? And I'm not thinking about the fact that the movie is called What to Expect When You're Expecting. And obviously she's pregnant.
Yeah.
I was just like, dee-to-do. Like she just got really
That's
dizzy.
Weird.
She's going to be sick in this movie. But no.
And then we go to a shop called The Breast Choice. And we learn that this is Wendy's children's store. Again, that's Elizabeth Banks. And we also learn that she just wrote her first children's book and she's having her first reading for the book. So there's a bunch of moms and kids in the store. And we see that Janice, played by Rebel Wilson, works there. Who Janice might be my favorite character of the whole movie.
Rebel Wilson trying to put on a Southern accent is so funny to me.
It's incredible. It's so good.
And also this whole scene is just kind of funny because they're reading a book about breastfeeding to children. And then there's this little turd of a kid who's like, tits. And then Wendy's husband chases him out of the store to try and be supportive. And it's cute.
It is funny.
After the reading, Wendy's husband Gary starts to leave, but Wendy's ovulation alarm goes off. And so she takes him in the back of the store. And you know what they're doing.
Then we go to Holly. This is J-Lo. And she's a photographer. And we see her photographing this adorable baby. And the baby's mom makes a comment about how Holly is so great with kids and she shouldn't wait too long if she wants her own. Which, hate.
What a rude thing to say to somebody.
There are a lot of antiquated comments throughout this entire movie that people make about pregnancy, women's bodies, all of it. Like it does have that sort of like early 2010s stamp on it for sure. Weight loss, obviously. Jules is like a coach on a weight loss show, which I feel like I hope Biggest Loser isn't on anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or it was more like what the people's reactions were when they were watching Biggest Loser. It was very fat shamey and weird.
Definitely.
I noticed that, and those were the parts that didn't age well to me. But I will say it is interesting to see how far society has come along to be like, oh, we don't talk to women like that anymore. I think people are a lot more sensitive to pregnancy and infertility and that kind of thing. And it hasn't been that long. And I'm not saying society is perfect, but yeah.
Definitely. There's been a lot of progress for it to be so obvious.
Exactly. And not that old of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Then Wendy and Gary go to a movie night at Piedmont Park, which is a big park in Atlanta that we were talking about earlier. There's a bunch of people there, and there's a huge projector screen with a movie. Wendy drinks wine, and Gary's surprised because she hasn't had a drink in 2 years, ever since they've been trying for a baby. But Wendy says they should take a break from trying for a while. Then she chugs her whole glass of wine in one sip and says, "Oh my God, I'm wasted."
I love Wendy. Then Gary orders from a food truck at the park called the Big Pig. And Marco, that's Chase Crawford, is the one that runs this food truck. And he actually hears that the food truck next to them is serving bacon grilled cheese, but he says that pig is his turf. So he goes over to confront them, and it's Rosie. It's Rosie's food truck. Again, that's Anna Kendrick. And he challenges her to a competition and says that whoever's special sells the best wins. And we learn in this conversation between them that they actually went to high school together and went on a date years ago. We also see that Gary and Wendy hook up on their picnic blanket in the back of the crowd because she's just like wasted off her one glass of wine. It's kind of cute.
After the crowd is gone, Marco and Rosie drink beers in the grass. They talk about high school and their food trucks, and they really have a lot of chemistry here. They have a lot in common. And then they end up making out on top of a car. And then we see Gary and Wendy walk out of some trees disheveled, and they're saying, "Is that our car alarm?"
I love that this movie has these like sort of subtle intertwining moments like this. Like it's not the same as a lot of movies that have the same format where like suddenly this person is that person's mom. And we like find out halfway through the movie, you know, like The Holiday I'm thinking of. Was it Love Actually?
I think Love Actually, yeah.
Anyway, I just like these types of intertwined moments are fun.
I think they did it in a really smart way in this movie.
Then we cut to Jules's fabulous big house in Hollywood, and she has a big pool outside. And we see that Evan is reading What to Expect When You're Expecting. So she is pregnant. The host on the TV show was right. And she apologizes to Evan because she thought she had a bum fallopian tube.
Then we cut to Holly and Alex, who are having a home visit as part of their adoption process. They're trying to adopt a baby. Holly and Alex are really funny together because Holly really wants everything to be perfect. And she's like hiding things in the house that aren't perfect in her eyes. And Alex is more laid back. I actually got from the beginning, I was like, oh no, he's going to be a toxic man who's like not actually wanting a baby. It reminded me of Juno.
Yeah.
The adoptive father.
Jason Bateman,
of course. And I was like, oh no, this is going to go the Juno route, but we'll talk about it. It doesn't. Holly reassures the social worker that they're planning to buy a house and not stay in their current rental apartment. And the social worker says that they may have to wait more than a year to get a baby because this process just takes time.
Then we see Wendy, who falls asleep at work at the Breast Choice, her shop. And she wakes up and she's like rubbing her boobs because they're really sore all of a sudden. And we just see her like freak out because she realizes what this must mean. And then we cut to her jumping into a pool, fully clothed, where Gary is swimming and she's holding like fistfuls of pregnancy tests. She'd be like, "Gary, we're pregnant." This is really cute. It's a really just exciting, sweet moment.
I love it. I also love that she took like 5 of them just to be absolutely sure.
I know. And Gary is just like in his swim cap with his goggles still on, also just like cheering in the pool. Yeah. It's so cute.
It's very cute. Then Rosie, played by Anna Kendrick, takes a pregnancy test and it's positive. And we can tell she's freaked out.
I love that they showed these reactions back to back of like showing the woman that's been trying for a really long time, who is like so excited and has wanted this for so long. And then also the woman that's just like very unsure.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the point of this movie, I think, is just for women to feel seen in one of these scenarios, like whether you've been trying for a long time or you feel unsure, I just think it's nice.
A lot of the things in this movie were things I haven't really seen captured in other movies about pregnancy, like stretch marks. You see Elizabeth Banks's stretch marks at one point in the movie, and just the things that they talk about. I really appreciated that. I thought it was nice, and I think we need more realistic portrayals of pregnancy.
Agreed. Then we see Holly and Alex go to an open house to look for a house for the baby, as Holly says. But Alex makes a comment that they can't afford both the house and the baby, and this will come back later.
Then Wendy and Gary go to Gary's dad's house for lunch, and Gary's dad, Ramsey, is played by Dennis Quaid. He's married to a much younger woman, Skylar, played by Brooklyn Decker. And Wendy and Gary tell them the good news that they're pregnant, only to have Skylar say, "Us too," or something like that.
Yeah.
And so Ramsey and Skylar are also pregnant, and everyone is just shocked. Ramsey makes a comment about how they weren't even trying, and so things get tense really quickly, and we can tell that Ramsey and Gary are very competitive with each other. And of course, this is like the opposite experience to what Gary and Wendy had.
Yeah, throughout the movie, I feel like Ramsey is always trying to get a one-up on his son, Gary. Like,
which is so weird.
It's so weird. And just insensitive to be like, we weren't even trying. Like, when you know that they've been trying for years. Just rude.
It is.
And then Wendy and Skylar compare their symptoms. And Wendy says that her boobs hurt. She's nauseous. She's exhausted. And Skylar's just like, oh, weird. I actually have more energy.
See, I feel like you can't fault Skylar in this movie. You can fault Dennis Quaid's character all you want. But Skylar is she's just living her life.
She is. She's in her own world.
Then Rosie tells Marco the news that she's pregnant. And they're both pretty distraught. And he asks what she wants to do. Rosie is frustrated because she doesn't want it all to be on her. This is a big decision. And he says, shit, should we get married? Which only upsets her more, obviously. She says it's not his problem and she'll figure it out on her own.
Then we jump to Holly, who is a photographer at the Georgia Aquarium. And after her session photographing divers, she chats with her coworker/boss, Kara, and says that she doesn't think that Alex is ready for a baby. And then her coworker suggests that she sends Alex to the Dudes, which is a dad's group that meets at the park every week.
I was not prepared for this dad group.
I
so
love
excited.
them. I know.
Rosie brings Marco back to her place and introduces him to her roommates. And one of them says, I thought you said cute Marco, not hot Marco. And then Marco's like, you said I was cute?
I grow to love them, Rosie and Marco.
I do too. I think their relationship is really cute.
It also just feels very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Then Holly tells Alex that she'll give him a blowjob if he agrees to go to the dad's group, because at first he's like, I don't have a kid. I don't want to go, blah, blah, blah. And she talks him into it. The second that she says this, we like smash cut to him standing in the park waiting for the Dudes, which is like kind of funny editing. And then a group of guys with strollers walks into the park in slow-mo, which to me, like them all coming around the corner with their strollers and their sunglasses on and they're just like dad t-shirts is just like the most iconic visual in this entire movie. I love it. So the group of dads in the park include, these are the actors, Chris Rock, Rob Hubel, Amir Talai, and Thomas Lennon. You guys will probably recognize most of them. I think especially, obviously, Chris Rock. And I think you'll recognize Thomas Lennon also. He's in a lot of movies. Anyway, funny group.
I feel like they're in a lot of comedies.
Mm-hmm.
The Dudes tell Alex that the top rule is don't talk about what we walk about. So it's like Fight Club. They say they do whatever they want in the group. For example, if you want to ditch the carrot sticks and give your kid French fries, do it. If your wife names your kid Henri and you want to call him Henry, go for it.
I think this is so cute. Like, this is like deeper than the meaning needs to be, but I love that they're showing a group of dads just be like, yeah, we're like showing male friendship like this, where they can like be honest and laugh, but also like there are emotional parts, and we see the guys kind of throughout the movie. It's very cute. I really like it.
And they're supporting each other.
Yeah.
I love it.
You don't see that a lot, especially in movies.
No, I don't think so.
You just don't get it. We don't get to see a lot of like genuine, deep male friendships in movies, so it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Rock's character is named Vic, And he has the most kids of the group. He has 4. And he says, I thought this quote was so funny. He says, yeah, sure, twice a year I think about the price of college and cry in my car for an hour, but then I just punch myself in the dick and get over it. I think he says he could go for 4 more, which is hilarious.
Then the guy's fangirl over a guy named Davis, played by Joe Manganiello. He's this ripped single guy that works out in the park whenever they're there. He shows them photos of the woman he was just seeing in Costa Rica, but he says, you guys are the ones living the real dream. And it's funny because they are also like vicariously living through this random single ripped dude in the park.
Yeah.
And they just chant, Davis, Davis.
He's like a foot taller than all of them, and they just like think that he's a god. It's so funny.
During this scene, they also do something that we don't like, which is make fun of their wives, and it's pretty gross. I will say, when you were talking about this like supportive dad group, that was what I was thinking was, but they make some gross comments that I don't love.
They do, yeah.
But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know, I still think this is like a really healthy outlet for them.
Yeah, both can be true. Like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see them make fun of them. And there were some like definitely dated jokes that they were making about their wives, which is not cool, but
it was very 2010s humor though.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah. Then back at Wendy's store, The Breast Choice, Wendy tells Janice that she was asked to be a speaker at this big expo coming up. And Janice goes, shut up, you're living your wisdom. I just love everything that she says in this movie.
I love Rebel Wilson. Then Wendy's cell phone rings and she smashes it with a baby monitor. And she says it's because she's protecting her miracle. This was like the most unhinged part of the movie, I felt like.
Yeah.
And then Janice says, actually, that was my cell phone.
Poor Janice.
Poor Janice. Then Holly and Alex get the call. There's a baby that needs to be adopted in Ethiopia named Caleb. And this is way earlier than they expected. We can tell that Holly is already smitten just from looking at the picture. But Alex is really nervous. Understandably so. I really thought he was going to be a toxic man, but looking back at the movie, I'm like, okay, I get why you're nervous. And then we cut to them standing in front of an under contract sign on a house.
Then we fast forward through most of the pregnancies and see this kind of montage where we see all of the different couples at the doctor. And all the ladies have bumps pretty much. So Wendy and Gary find out they're having a boy. Ramsey and Skylar find out they're having a girl. Jules and Evan find out they're having a boy. And then the doctor tells Rosie and Marco that their baby is too young to tell at this point.
Then Wendy and Gary go to dinner with Ramsey and Skylar, where Ramsey says, I see your baby and raise you one more. And he hands over the ultrasound picture, and it's twins. And Gary has a full breakdown at the table.
He like grabs a dessert off of the dessert tray and starts like shoveling in his mouth. It's like, it's fine. It's not a competition.
It would be so strange, though, if you're like a grown person about to have your own baby and then your parent is about to have twins and you're about to have 2 siblings.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Especially given their relationship dynamic. I imagine it would be really hard, yeah.
And I know that happens all the time. There are a lot of families like that nowadays, but I definitely think it would be a hard transition.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Then we see Rosie and Marco, and they're doing well. They're like very cute together. Marco takes this adorable picture of Rosie and her like tiny little bump one night. And then we see them go to sleep that night. I believe it's snowing or raining out. And then Rosie wakes up in the middle of the night and wakes Marco up because she's bleeding. And so they go to the hospital and it's raining outside and they play this like very sad, slow song over the scene. Like it's one of those scenes where you don't hear the dialogue, but you know what's going on. And the doctor definitely comes up and tells them that she's miscarrying and she's like sobbing. It's really sad. And then when they drive back to Rosie's house, Rosie says to Marco, this is the first like dialogue that we hear back after the music. She says, it's my fault. I wished it. I never even felt a kick. And Marco reassures her that it's not her fault. And she says, congratulations, you're off the hook. We're not a couple. We've never even been on a real date, you know. I think we can do ourselves a favor and stop pretending. And then before Marco can respond, her roommate stumbles up to them drunk and like tells Rosie to come in with her. And so then they just go inside.
Heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking scene for so many reasons. Like obviously because of what's happening and she's so upset. And then to hear her verbalize that she feels like it's her fault, which I know so many women can relate to and feel. And then to also see them break up effectively in the same scene is just gut-wrenching, because it just feels like both of them are so upset and sad and they don't have each other to process it with. But it makes sense for her to be like, I don't want to try to make this work right now. I like need to recover.
Yeah. I thought it was a really realistic portrayal of how she would feel afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
It was sad.
I will say I'm glad they included it, though, because I think if they're going to include these other like very happy journeys to parenthood, obviously we see like Holly dealt with infertility. Wendy and Gary tried to conceive for a really long time. So we do see different journeys, but to see somebody go through this alongside seeing other couples go through the happy parts of pregnancy, I think is much more realistic. And I appreciated that they showed it, because we don't get to see this type of thing on screen a lot, you know?
Definitely. Then Jules does a magazine cover shoot with her bump, and she gets a call from Evan, and they argue about whether they're going to circumcise their son or not, because she came across a pamphlet that was like, should you do it or not? And then she was, going down the rabbit hole of that, and they can't agree on it.
And then we see all the dudes back in the park, and Alex vents to the guys about how he's not ready for a baby, and he was supposed to have longer, because again, they weren't supposed to get the call for a baby for a long time. And the guys all reassure him that he'll never feel ready, but that he's going to be great, and that fatherhood is amazing.
Which is funny, because I think the very first thing that one of them tells him is, don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then Vic, who's played by Chris Rock, tells Alex to hold his daughter for practice holding a baby because she never cries. He says, fell off a changing table last week, didn't make a peep. Alex makes fun of him for that, but the guys tell him, rule number 2 of the dudes group is no judging. And then they all confess to different things that they did, like, last week my kid ate a cigarette, or I caught mine playing in the dryer, or I picked up the wrong baby from daycare. Found my baby swimming in the toilet. But when Alex does get the baby, she does immediately cry, and Alex says, take her back.
He panics. And then they see Davis. This is, again, Joe Manganiello, the guy they idolize. And he runs up to the dudes and high fives a bunch of them, except for Craig, who's played by Thomas Lennon. Just Google Thomas Lennon if you don't know who I'm talking about, and you'll know immediately. And Craig goes, I missed out on the high fives before. I'll take one if you have a spare. But Davis just ignores him and then leaves. And one of the other guys is like, nice job, Craig. As if Craig ruined it for all of them.
Now we're with Holly again, and she runs out of work to make it to a crib sale. And as she's talking about all the baby stuff that she's buying, Kara, who's her boss / coworker, who is the one who suggested the dude group in the first place, she says that they just had their budget meeting, and she doesn't think that she can renew Holly's contract. Holly's really devastated by this, of course, because this is her main gig, and they're about to close on their house, and they're about to get this baby. And she asks Kara not to tell Alex until she finds something else.
Then we're back with Evan and Jules, and Evan confronts Jules because her magazine cover came out, and the headline on the cover is, I'm not circumcising my baby. And she explains that the editor must have overheard their phone conversation. And Evan says that this is really important for him, and he explains all of the ways that he always compromises what he wants in favor of what she wants. And then he says that he's going to stay at his place that night.
At Wendy's store, Janice helps her design her baby shower Evite, and it's Minnie Cooper themed because their last name is Cooper, which is very cute. However, while they're working on it, Skylar comes in to personally invite Wendy to her baby shower with a fancy box as the invitation. And inside the invitation are 2 tiny Minnie Cooper, Hot Wheels cars. And Janice makes a car crash noise. But obviously this is very disappointing, and just another way that Gary's dad and stepmom are one-upping them.
Mm-hmm. While Skylar's there, Wendy asks her how she's doing, and Skylar's just I feel whole, and she's talking about how amazing and easy her pregnancy has been so far. But we can tell Wendy feels not awesome. She's kicked back, and you can tell she's swollen and exhausted. And then on her way out of the shop, Skylar makes a point to grab one of Holly's photography business cards. So again, this is one of the like subtle intertwining moments. And then Wendy and Janice watch Skylar walk out to her car across the street, and Janice says, God, she's like a magical pregnancy unicorn.
That is such a great description of her in this movie.
Yes.
Back at home, Gary and Wendy watch Jules's weight loss competition show called Lose It and Weep. Again, this is like Biggest Loser. And they advertise for the finale, and Jules says that she's going to be dropping in on some previous contestants, which will come back later.
Then we see Jules and Evan fighting again, and they're fighting about her traveling for her show, again to do this, where she's going to pop in on some previous contestants. And Jules makes a comment in their argument that it would be so much easier if she was doing this on her own. So again, I feel like we're just seeing their arguments escalate every time we see them.
Mm-hmm. Alex and Holly go out for dinner, and on their walk over, she starts to tell him about her job. But it turns out that he's throwing her a surprise baby shower, so she doesn't get to tell him that she lost her job. And it's a big party at a bar that has karaoke.
It's very fun. It's like a
It looks
very
so
rowdy
fun.
baby shower. Like everybody is wasted. There's
With
no
the
kids
dad
there.
group.
The dad group is there doing karaoke. It's amazing.
It's fun.
Then we see Rosie going to a concert with her roommates. She's actually going to the floor above the bar. So we see her like walk by everybody that's at the baby shower party, which again, another like fun, subtle, intertwining moment. And we can tell that Rosie is like starting to feel a little bit better. I think her roommates make a comment about how this is the first time she's been out of the house in a while. I also don't think at any point she's told her roommates about any of this.
I don't think so.
About being pregnant, losing the baby, any of it.
Which is so sad and lonely.
I know. And as she's standing in the crowd in the concert, she looks around and she sees Marco.
At the baby shower, Holly is wasted and having a great time. But then a bunch of the dudes' alarms go off because it's 9:30 and they have to get back for the babysitters. It's so cute. It's like everyone's having this like crazy fun time at karaoke, and then the alarms go off and it's like, all right, bye, party's over.
Time to go, bye.
As Holly and Alex leave, Alex thanks Kara for helping with the party, and she says, it's the least I can do since Holly lost her job, which, you know, she wasn't supposed to tell him. And she immediately knows that she shouldn't have said that.
Then we're back with Rosie, and she leaves the concert because she saw Marco, and he follows her out, and he says that he misses her, and she says, yeah, I miss me too. This broke my heart. I think this is the saddest line of the whole movie, probably.
I agree.
And then as it looks like she's about to say more, or they're going to have more of a kind of like deeper conversation about what happened, because again, they've never talked about what happened. Like they broke up right after they got back from the hospital. This random girl comes out of the building and asks Marco to come back in, and it's clearly his date. I think Rosie says something like, really, how much time or something?
Yeah.
And it's just very sad when she leaves.
It's always the boy who's moving on the fastest afterwards.
Isn't it?
So painful. Alex and Holly argue, and he's upset, obviously, that she didn't tell him about losing her job. And she's mad because he doesn't seem ready for the baby, so it's kind of like a back and forth where everything is bubbling up to the surface now. She confesses that she couldn't handle another thing being her fault, which is so sad for her to say. That's another sad line too, actually. And she said she's the one who can't do the one thing a woman is supposed to be able to do. Her quote, not mine. Craig comes out of the bar and says he can't believe that she didn't tell Alex. And Holly drunkenly yells, "Glass houses, Craig. I know you call your son Henry when Kara's not around." And Kara hears this and yells, "You what?" And they have a really funny argument about it in the cab as they're leaving.
By the end of the argument, Craig is just like, I'm sorry, I love you so much. I'm so sorry. It's really funny. We haven't touched on it that much just because there's so much to cover, but Craig calling his son Henry instead of Henri is like an ongoing joke throughout the whole entire movie. So then for Kara to find out about it in this moment is actually really funny. It's a great payoff.
It's also the first time that I realized that that was his wife.
Okay.
Because they didn't really tell you before.
No, they don't. Yeah, you're totally right.
So it was super funny.
And then we cut to Jules, who's doing her surprise visits with the previous Lose It and Weep contestants. And the first one she's checking on is Gary. So this was one of the only big reveals in the movie, other than, I guess, what you were just saying, the fact that Kara and Craig are married. The fact that Gary was on Lose It and Weep, and so he knows Jules. And ironically, he's currently getting food from Marco's food truck, the like pig-themed one. I forget what it's called. And This is where the 2010s are definitely showing. Jules like shames him for eating unhealthy food, and they end up doing lunges together. And in the middle of the lunges, she collapses because she's in labor.
Yeah, this whole scene was kind of icky to me. It just did not age well at all. But I did like the reveal that he was on her show, and that's how this was all connected. Alex meets up with the dudes in the park, but they yell at him for breaking rule number 1 and telling Holly about Henry. Alex confesses to the guys that they had to pull out of their house purchase, and he's not even sure if he wants a baby. He says the guys told him all the bad things about fatherhood. And the guys say that they love being dads and they wouldn't trade it for anything. One guy says, "I love my baby so much, I worry I'm going to eat him." Craig says, "I'm a lackluster husband, but an above average dad."
It's very cute.
It kind of reminds me of like mom groups. Like sometimes I'm harsh on like men in movies like this, but I'm thinking of like if a mom group was sitting and complaining about their kids and complaining about being moms, I would be like, yeah, you deserve to complain right now. You have this support group. It's good for you. And then you know that like they're all like, oh, but you know, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And that's basically what's happening here.
Totally. Then we go back to Jules, and a doctor comes to tell her that she has to be on bed rest until she has her baby, so she's going to have to stay in Atlanta and deliver there. And then we see Gary and Wendy go to Skylar and Ramsey's baby shower, and Wendy farts on the way in, and Gary is just like, "My God, was that you?" And she says, "If you must know, the baby has gas."
The baby shower is a giant pool party at Ramsey and Skylar's house. Ramsey makes fun of Gary, and he storms off and takes a golf cart. At this point, Gary has just had enough. So he goes and he gets his little pink golf cart and he drives off onto the golf course. And Skylar has one of her best moments in the movie, and she lectures Ramsey, and she says, "I will not have my son treated like that. Put your drink down, get your ass out there, and fix what needs fixing." And I just... this entire movie, she is referring to Gary as her son, and I'm pretty sure she's younger than him.
Yes.
And she just doesn't have a mean bone in her body, you know?
But Ramsey's always like, "Say hello to your mother." And Gary's always like, "Not my mom. Still not my mom." So it's another like ongoing gag throughout the movie. It's hilarious. As Gary's driving the golf cart, he's giving himself a pep talk. And this was, I thought, really sweet. He just goes, "Just because you had a bad dad doesn't mean you're going to be a bad dad. You will not ridicule. You will not compete." And then as he's saying this to himself, Ramsey pulls up in a golf cart next to him, but like just edges in front of him like they're racing. And while they're driving, Gary confronts him about how he treated him growing up. And ultimately, Ramsey does apologize and says that he knows that he wasn't a good dad. He even admits that he has Gary's Lose It season on DVD, and he watches it over and over again at night when he can't sleep. But then like right as they're like finishing this really sweet moment, Ramsey just like guns it on his cart and says, "Beat me home and you'll never have to race me again." So it's like right back where we started.
Gary's golf cart flies up a hill on the course and he goes straight into Ramsey's backyard and into the pool, which is scary at first, but he's totally fine. And it turns out he won. He beat his dad. And his dad is a former race car driver, by the way, so that's why this is such a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Then we see that Evan flies to Atlanta to take care of Jules. And we find out that he threw his dance performance on his show in order to get kicked off so he could go take care of her. And they have this really nice moment where they both apologize for everything that they've said and they make up. And you can tell they're excited to do this together. And now, now that it's actually happening, they're in it.
I'm glad they had some resolution there because it was rough for them this whole time.
I know.
Marco apologizes to Rosie and says he can never fully understand what she went through. He gives her some homemade caramels. Do you say caramels or caramels?
I think I say caramel.
I think I switch depending on the context. It is something that they mention in the movie too. And I was like, I don't know what I say. I say caramels. He gives her homemade caramels and asks her out on a real date. She says they can't be together because every time she looks at his face, it kills her. Ugh.
Another really sad line from Rosie.
So sad.
Then we go to Holly, and she is actually meeting up with Skylar to give her maternity portrait. And it's this huge, they're in public, by the way. It's this huge framed photo of Skylar and Ramsey just like naked, popping champagne. and she has her huge belly. There's like flags covering like her boobs and stuff. So it's like, it's not fully naked, but it's definitely nude. And Holly is like, are you sure you want me to like show you in public? And Skylar is just so excited. She's like, yes, show it to me. It's perfect. And Skylar even says that she wants Holly to be their new family photographer.
So now the money issue is solved.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy goes to a kids expo where she's a keynote speaker, and she goes backstage and sits down because she's just feeling horrible. She tells Janice she peed herself, quote, like a lot, so they have to swap clothes. And then it's time for Wendy's speech, and she's wearing Janice's unicorn shirt.
Yeah.
And she starts her speech about the miracle of pregnancy. And as she's talking, it's very like flowery, kind of just like not realistic language about pregnancy. And she ends up throwing out her note cards and just speaking from the heart. And she says she's going to tell the truth and that she doesn't even recognize her body anymore.
She goes on to say that she was promised the pregnancy glow, but then she's like, but I'm calling bullshit. And she says, pregnancy sucks. Making a human being is really hard. I have no control over my body or my emotions. Gare Bear, I'm sorry. All I want to do is punch you in the face, but I love you so much, so I don't mean it. I didn't get the glow. I got back knee and hemorrhoids. I have these purple stretch marks everywhere. Pressure hanging off my uterus that feels like I got kicked in the vag. And then Janice is like, all right. Wendy Cooper, everybody. I appreciated this because this was much closer to my experience.
Was it?
Yes, and I had a good pregnancy. Like, I did not have a lot of complications. I was not super sick. Like, I wasn't throwing up a lot or anything. But it is so much more exhausting than anybody ever told me. So I appreciated watching this actually after having done it.
Why do you think it is that there are so many things about pregnancy and motherhood that just aren't talked about? Like, why do we not know this stuff?
I think there's so much pressure to like be grateful. And even if a lot of that is internal, I think a lot of it is probably societal, but a lot of it also I think is internal. Like I'll speak for myself anyway. When I was pregnant, even though I felt gross and tired, I felt so grateful that I wasn't throwing up all the time because I knew people that had a worse experience. So it felt like I couldn't be like, yeah, I feel horrible. And also like when people ask you, nobody is looking for you to be like, let me tell you, actually. Everybody's expecting you to be like, oh, yeah, no, I feel good. Yeah, thanks for asking, blah, blah, blah. And then you move on with the conversation, you know?
Wow.
Like I would sit and tell my friends.
Couldn't be me. I want to know everything.
No, I know. That's how I felt too. So like I would tell my friends, obviously, but like I think you just hear so many people in passing be like, oh, yeah, no, I feel great. Oh, yeah, no, I feel great. Or like, oh, yeah, no, she's been throwing up for 2 months or whatever. So I just think I think it's a comparison thing.
It's interesting that even if you're having a rough time, you would compare it to, well, like somebody else has it worse, so I can't complain. And that's sad because it's totally valid.
Yeah, which that's not true. Like hearing myself say that out loud, I'm like, I don't normally feel like that about anything. But I think in the back of my head, which I have bad anxiety, so I think this is part of that. Like I didn't want to jinx it. So I didn't want to be like, I didn't want to say out loud, and I still feel like this, like with the baby, where I'm like, if I say something is going, or if I like complain and then something happens, I'm going to feel so guilty that I complained about it. You know what I mean? Which is just an anxious thought process and not actually like grounded in reality. But I don't know. I'm sure I'm not the only person that felt like that. So
oh, you're definitely not.
I think that's part of it too.
Definitely not. Yeah, I did love this speech from Wendy in the movie. I felt like it was really necessary for people to hear. It was comforting to me.
Yeah.
And it was funny.
It's also just nice sometimes to see a woman just be like, my hair is fucked up. I'm wearing a random outfit and I just can't care anymore. You know? Yeah. It's nice.
My favorite kind of character, honestly.
Yeah, truly.
So Wendy's speech goes viral on YouTube, as you would expect it to. They even do the thing that was so popular in the 2010s where they auto-tune and edit the speech so that it's like a song.
Yeah, they make it into like a remix.
The next day there's a mob outside the Breast Choice store, and Wendy thinks it's an angry mob, but actually it's all fans. It's all people who are really, really excited to talk to her because she has been real.
Then we're with Alex and Holly, and they're traveling to Ethiopia to adopt their baby.
Gary and Wendy go to the park to walk so that they can get their labor started. And the dudes are there walking and see them walking. And here's another little interconnectedness point. They tell Gary that they meet in the park every Saturday. And does he end up joining? Do we know?
Mm-hmm,
He does?
He does, yeah.
Oh, cute. I love that. I love that they all end up being friends. Craig mentions that Kara calls Henri Henry now, so he owes Alex.
So that worked out. Davis catches up with the dudes and tells him that the girl that he slept with in Australia has a daughter now, and it's his. And they're moving to Atlanta, which means he's going to be part of the dad's group.
Nice. Alex and Holly get to the orphanage, and Holly starts panicking and rifling through her diaper bag to make sure that she has everything. Alex admits that he's scared, and Holly says she's scared too. Alex says, "But I know I'm going to love him because I love the hell out of his mom." And it ends up being really cute.
Mm-hmm.
He ends up not being toxic like I thought.
No, it's just like a cute, very realistic moment where they're both like, oh my God, we don't know what we're doing, but we're doing it together, you know?
Yep.
And then it's time for the Lose It finale. And it's also time for everyone to go into labor. So we see Jules recording from Atlanta, and she starts cursing on live TV as she's talking because of her contractions. So that's funny. They like make some jokes because she's on live TV cursing. And then we cut to Ramsey and Skylar, who are watching the finale, and Skylar is calmly breathing through her contractions on her yoga ball. So everything is going very smoothly for her as always. And then we cut to Gary and Wendy, who are speeding to the hospital in their car. Wendy's like yelling at Gary. Gary runs a red light. And then we also see Marco run the food truck over his employee's foot.
Then everyone is at the hospital. I love that they ended up all being at the same exact hospital. We see all of the women in labor. Wendy changes her mind and says she wants an epidural, which I imagine is very realistic for people who maybe don't want one to start with. I get it. Well, I don't get it personally, but
I can imagine, I guess, if you didn't. Props to you if you did not get an epidural, because I did, and I cannot imagine not having one, truly.
Gary reminds Wendy that the epidural is not what she wants, but she slaps him and says, "Get me the juice. I'm sorry, baby, but don't come back without it."
So then Wendy does get the epidural, but then the doctor tells her that the baby isn't coming as quickly as he needs to, and so she needs a C-section. And she's upset, obviously, because she has a birth plan, and this isn't what she wanted. Like, none of this about the situation is like what she planned for, which, again, I think is great representation.
Mm-hmm. And then everyone has their babies. Wendy has a successful C-section. Jules has an unmedicated birth, and everything about Skylar's labor is really easy, actually, in a super funny way. When Jules's baby comes out, they say it's a girl, so they didn't have to worry about the circumcision after all. It's like a surprise. And they decide to name her Emerson.
Gary and Wendy name their son Theo, but then as Wendy is meeting him, like kind of next to the curtain because she's still on the operating table, she passes out, and they have to take Gary out of the room and give Wendy oxygen. And then we see Gary waiting in the hall, and he's very nervous, obviously. And Ramsey comes out to see him, and Gary tells him that Wendy lost a lot of blood, and he doesn't know what's going on. And Ramsey just hugs him and sits with him while he waits. I thought this was a really nice moment.
Then Holly and Alex meet their son, and they do an adoption ritual where they promise to take care of their son and ensure that he always remembers his Ethiopian heritage. They get to hold their baby, and they're so happy, and Holly cries.
Then we're back with Gary in the hospital, and the doctor comes out and tells him that Wendy is awake and she's okay.
Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm. And then we see Evan lay in the hospital bed with Jules, and he asks her to marry him. It's very cute. And then we're back with Wendy and Gary, and Wendy holds Theo and says that he looks so wise. They have this like very intimate moment with her and Theo and Gary. And Gary tells her that this was the scariest night of his life and that it was horrible. And she says, "No, it was beautiful." And Gary says, "Yeah, that's what I meant." And then Wendy says, "I finally found it. He's my glow."
Sweet.
So cute.
The next day, Rosie walks into the hospital and she runs into Marco and his employee with the broken toe. She says her cousin that's married to the old race car dude had her twins, so she's there to visit. So that's a huge reveal. She invites him to come with her to visit the babies.
Which is weird, by the way.
It is weird. And she does comment that it's kind of weird. And he's like, yeah, it is. But then they're like, okay.
Yeah.
He asks if she's okay. And she says, I'll have another chance when the time is right. And then they joke about caramels and how to say it. And they walk through the hospital together.
This was a very, like, full circle moment that I don't think I ever caught when I was watching this when I was so much younger. Like, them being in the hospital at the same time that everyone else is having their babies. And they're there together to see a baby, but it's not their baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see them, like, joke and, like, feel normal or more normal just, like, made me happy.
Yeah, me too.
Made me feel like they're healing.
And then we see a montage of everyone at home with their babies. Everyone has a great experience except for Ramsey and Skylar, whose babies won't stop crying. So it's kind of a contrast to they had the easiest pregnancy ever, but then parenthood is starting off kind of rough, which I think is also realistic. It's nice that they showed that side of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Then we see Gary, Alex, and Davis with the dudes group in the park. Yay, they all get together.
All the new dads.
They pass Margot and Rosie, who are setting up their new food truck that they are owning together. And it's called the Cheesy Pig, which is a combination of both of their food trucks. And that's the end.
Yay.
Sweet movie. Very wholesome.
Very wholesome. And so many great actors and actresses in it. I loved it.
And again, it wasn't overkill. It was just like the story was still good. Yes, they fly through all of the storylines and you don't get super deep on any of them, but that's the nature of this kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they did a good job.
Me too. This was a movie that I used to watch all the time with one of my best friends growing up, Caroline. We would watch this together like at almost all of our sleepovers. So then to watch it again, now that I have had a baby, is like was so trippy. It was so nice. And I'm so happy that we got to talk about it. And I'm so happy that it was my first episode back. Guys, I'm so excited to be back every week.
We're so happy to have you back, Megan. It was so nice.
Yay.
I'm tired of talking to myself.
You did such a good job, though. You were so good at it.
Oh, thanks. You're sweet. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you liked the episode.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at What We're Watching Pod. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.